This episode is brought to you by all of our incredibly generous Patreon backers. Go to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv in order to check out the rewards, see the different tiers, and, help us out. Thanks to all of our backers, and thank you to everybody who is considering backing at patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv.
Some of our landings were desperate adventures. We are now prepared to meet the inevitable counterattacks with power and with confidence.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Kole Ross.
And you're listening to Bonfireside Chat. It is a spiky, edgy...
Favorite of the accursed.
It is a favorite of the accursed. Is it a favorite of the lost gods? Where we're continuing our discussion of Lords of the Fallen.
Again with the naming, like we had that contest about like what is the most Dark Souls ass name you can give something, like librarian of the missing column or something. Yeah. Like there definitely is a naming convention for Souls, but it is more interesting than this.
If people are listening, the person who won that contest who got the poster never got back to me afterwards.
Oh,
it was Apostles of the Pale Drake, which I think is pretty cool. Like I want to learn about the antecedents of
the channelers. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. So I have a poster. It is unfortunately folded because I didn't hear from you in time to go to a post office when I was in San Francisco, and didn't want to carry a curled poster on while traveling. Yeah. But it is a nice poster. Mm-hmm. It is folded. It is yours if you'd like it. Yeah. So hit us up.
Hit us up. This week we are continuing our saga of Lords of the Fallen. Previously, we had ventured up to the cemetery and killed the worshipper, and stepped over the threshold between realms to find the Rogar Temple with our frenemy Yetka.
Yes. Yeah, our frenemy, thankfully not love interest. Like I thought that was good. Like when I realized this game was not sophisticated in its storytelling, I was like, oh, I'm gonna fall in love with Yetka. And her story is actually a little bit more interesting than that. Yeah. Even if it doesn't, like, I don't exactly know what's going on. Mm-hmm. It is, again, there's like those shades of ambition I was talking about. I would love to have someone have the opportunity to actually get that out. Just for their own sake, just because I'm a nice person. I want good things to happen to them.
It has an emotion, like her story has an emotional core, but it is not the most obvious and easy one.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this, if this is the first of the Lords of the Fallen episodes that you're listening to, we encourage you to go back and listen to the first one, because, we're going to spoil some stuff. Also because the first episode has a lot of the generalities.
We're not going to talk about too much of that. Yeah, so you end up you go into the Rogar realm, and you're in front of this big bridge heading into this gigantic temple, mm-hmm. And that's the Rogar realm for you. This is where people live and work.
Yep, yeah. This is where the Rogar come from. This is a Dark Souls ass run up. I got some serious bridge vibes off of this. Yeah,
I actually like the way this looks from the outside a lot.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh, this looks pretty cool. Like this actually, as much as I was teasing at the end of the last episode about like, man, I hate all these snowy castles. Going into a big ashy castle, it actually does, like, this looks pretty cool from the outside, I think.
Yeah.
It didn't strike like a Souls nerve. It did strike like a metal cover. Is it metal nerve?
Yes. Is it metal? Yes. As of right now, it is metal. Yeah.
Yeah. Super metal.
Yeah, so you're making your run up, and you encounter, I think one of the most interesting NPCs in the game, which is the Crafter.
Yes. So this guy ends up being a couple, like, he is an extra dimensional being, like kind of a watcher character, who has seen this all kind of play out before. Mm-hmm. When you can actually get him to talk about things that are not just crafting, which is what he mainly does, he will kind of give hints about. This is the futility of your quest, and kind of like not so much cyclical, mm-hmm. but just kind of like he's above it all.
Yeah.
In the way that alien voices tend to be, but he introduces this mechanical element of crafting and blacksmithing and stuff to the game.
Yeah. So you're collecting these runes, both small and large, and you can talk to them in order to kind of like unlock the potential. And these runes factor in to the story a little bit, but mechanically, they are kind of a randomized way to roll for effects that you can assign to either your gauntlet, your weapon, or your armor, or your shield.
Yes. And if you don't unseal the runes, you can use them as keys. So there's kind of this like, nice little like risk reward to that. Like you can either choose to have your equipment be better or have access to new equipment usually. You can, one kind of nice touch is that when they are randomized when you break them open, but you can actually bet XP to increase the chances of getting good ones, which I like. That's like a cool, like if I don't have quite enough XP to like gain another level, sometimes I'd pump it into this. Because one of the secrets about this is that certain runes are just amazing.
Yeah.
Luck and poison are great. Poison does a lot of damage over time. Like it doesn't wear off quickly. It's awesome to add to your gauntlet and be able to poison things from a distance. Yeah. And luck is just incredible because the way luck works is on your weapon increases scaling. Right. So if you're just going like a pure strength build, putting out like a high quality or flawless luck rune in there will make it do a lot more damage. On your equipment, it decreases or increases your equip burden. So if you get a bunch of kind of shitty luck runes and put them in all your equipment slots, it's very easy to wear like much heavier armor.
Right. Yeah. This is a pro tip for anybody who is playing through this game for the first time. Fire resistance is also really good as well.
Especially there's going to be a lot of things that do fire damage.
For this stretch of the game. Poison's great because nothing really has a resistance to it. So it is free DOT.
Yeah, and lightning is actually great, but there isn't a lightning rune. Tons of things are weak against lightning, which I read on the wiki, but there's only like one or two lightning weapons in the whole game.
Oh, so you have to so it's inherent to a weapon. You can't.
Yeah. You can't add it to it.
There's a boss later. That's one of his conditions is to attack him with a lightning.
And it is hard to get lightning. Yeah. This guy right now he's kind of stuck here, but he's sending you on a quest to get like a crystal. Yeah. Or something that will allow him to teleport to different anvils around the world and your world.
Yeah, it is the Terra crystal that rests in the chamber of binding at the in the Rogar temple. Again, this is just
he's not joking. Like that's actually what it is.
Yeah. Again, just the malediction prophecy too. Everything is the blank of blank. Ugh.
One of the things that's interesting, or not interesting, it's kind of like I was surprised about, is that you can remove runes from things. Because usually in, say, like a Diablo or a Torchlight, like it would be a permanent choice, and that would be, to get rid of it, you usually have to destroy the equipment or destroy the rune. Here you can just kind of shuffle them. Yeah. So if you luck out and get a really good rune, it can stay on whatever weapon you're using, which is kind of a kindness that I appreciate, even though it seems like slightly less sophisticated on first blush.
Yeah, it definitely brings a lot less consequence to the table. Yeah. I think that this is one level of complexity too high in terms of making you manage not just which piece of equipment you have, but also keep track of what runes are on what.
Yeah,
I don't know that the interface can bear that level of complexity.
It ended up being kind of a pain because it always just meant going back to a anvil. But I only really used one set of equipment at a time. I didn't do a lot of switching, which I know you can do that. Like that is a thing that people recommend, like having a fire weapon and having a poison weapon and stuff like that. But I just never really did it. Yeah. It might have just been me being lazy. So for me, it wasn't that big of an issue. But if you're keeping a bigger variety of equipment, I could see it being kind of a pain.
Yeah. I think it is a kindness that they put this kind of after the first third of the game by not kind of inundating you with too many levels of choice. At the beginning, for as much as we've bemoaned kind of the lack of builds, I think that it would have been overwhelming if they had introduced this sooner.
It also, I agree with that, and like it does add a lot of variety. Like the way these things work on your gauntlet, it will have different effects depending on which of the three states your gauntlet is firing in. You set your gauntlet to, and some of them are really interesting. Like you can turn your grenades into like cluster bombs with these things. Like you can do a lot of neat stuff with these things. Like I like the rune system in this game. Yeah. It's pretty good. It is a little bit, it comes late, which is good. But it came when I was ready for it. Like when I was like, oh, this is feeling a little simple.
Yeah. It's less optimizy than the upgrades in Dark Souls. Like there is no like one true path to maximize the damage potential. It feels more situational in a way that I appreciate.
Other than luck.
Yeah.
Like luck is almost like that's universally a great thing. Like you'll never do wrong, like just putting some luck runes on stuff.
Yeah.
So you're continuing through.
Yeah, and
this area.
This is a little bit of a difficulty spike actually compared to the first. There is a very cheekily named achievement for coming into the Rogar realm, which is the real Lord starts here.
Mm-hmm. And it is harder. Like you're going to fight a bigger variety of enemies. And one of the hardest things, and this actually you're going to come back here, spoiler, and this ends up being a bigger problem then. But boy, is this confusingly laid out.
Holy shit!
Like I got lost here more than anywhere else in the game. Both trips here. Like it's very easy to just kind of lose your place. Mm-hmm. And they're kind of huge paths that reveal a lot of stuff that like are pretty well hidden.
Yeah.
And not very well telegraphed. It's kind of a bummer.
Even the critical path is pretty well obscured.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So essentially you're going in this eastern and western antechambers to pull levers to open the central path. Mm-hmm. Here.
Yeah, the eastern antechamber has this first new enemy that you're seeing, which is the Forger. He's like a big bottom heavy fat guy who has crossbows, and he's the first enemy I think who will heal himself proactively.
He throws traps too.
Yeah,
on the ground.
Traps.
Like, he has these bear traps hanging from his belt. This is one of the very few times I think that like this game makes an enemy that kind of looks okayly designed. Mm-hmm. Like I don't mind this thing.
Well, he cuts a good silhouette.
Yeah, he actually looks unique and different than everything else that you run into at this point. So I think that's probably why I like him. So not so bad.
Yeah.
In the western end, and you're getting we're not going to talk about every little piece of miscellaneous treasure you pick up. But on the western antechamber, you actually run into some enemies fighting each other.
Yeah.
Which is weird. Like I don't actually know what's going on with these Rogars.
Oh, but they were just fighting over like a piece of dropped food or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's the Forger and these dogs, these demon hound kind of things.
Yeah.
Which are kind of like functionally the same as the golems a little bit.
Yeah. Like quick to kill, but they're quick to kind of stun lock you and stuff. And they're not actually a problem unless they're with other enemies.
Yeah. Something to be said about the Forgers is that they're starting to introduce enemies that are dangerous at multiple different distances. Mm-hmm. More so than just, the crossbowmen who would do the majority of their damage at a distance, but have like a weak melee attack. Like the Forger is, kind of like managing your distance from him in a pretty cool way. Especially in combination with other stuff that it throws at you with him.
Yeah. Yep. After you pull both levers, you can go through this big middle courtyard with lots of little exits to it. Some which are sealed.
Flame.
Yes. It is called the Eternal Flame. All these kind of rune-covered exits that you're going to come back to later.
And they were all hit really hard by Kennedy's assassination.
Yes. Yeah.
But I'm sorry, I interrupted you for the goof. You are going to be opening up these little side entrances, and those will come into play for a boss fight in the 3rd episode. Yes,
that is actually optional. So you're introduced to the tyrants at this point, which I like these guys.
Me too.
I think this is a cool gimmick. And again, it's adding some much needed variety. Mm-hmm. So the trick to these guys, they're big greatsword guys, and they have a Horcrux nearby. And after you kill them, they take a knee and start pulling energy from somewhere. And if you follow this little trail of energy, you'll find a little urn with their heart inside it.
Yeah, it's funny. Their Horcrux is their actual heart.
Yes. Yep. And it's just around. Mm-hmm. But sometimes they do some tricky stuff like putting these in kind of hidden areas.
Yeah.
And on different, x-axes or the z-axes and such.
Yeah. Different floors.
Different floors.
Yeah, different floors. There we go.
Yeah.
Different floors. And also, like you may kind of defeat this guy, and as he's temporarily recovering, you will run to find this urn, and this is in a room with a bunch of other enemies. So you are, all of a sudden, you've taken this thing out, but you have to defeat the tyrant again. Like these are enemies that you have to fight twice, unless you can just kind of intuit or spot where these urns are. So it is a way to kind of like compound the complexity of these fights in a really satisfying way, I think.
Yeah, and like lead you into traps and stuff. Like I think that some of the more thoughtfully designed good encounters in the game are designed around these guys.
Yeah, and they're deployed sparingly too.
Yeah, exactly. Unlike the giant knight guys, these guys, there's like maybe 5 of them in the game,
and they don't respond. So like they act as almost like mini bosses.
Yeah, and while we're heaping praise upon these guys, the getting their hearts, there's actually a mechanical benefit to collecting them. Like I was just like, oh, it just wants me to take it out so I can kill this guy, but later that comes up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which again lets you cash in just stuff that you were incidentally collecting anyway by progressing in the game.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. Just toss you some softballs every once in a while, You head up, this is kind of an instance of good, like, Disneyland signposting. You have this temple that's off in the distance. However, like the Citadel, almost in a mirror version, wink, wink, the front door is blocked, so you have to make your way around the panorama, which is, notable. People who've listened to Danny California will remember when you broke the panorama. But you are kind of fighting these Rogar, and you're introduced to kind of like, I appreciate how difficult the dimensional beasts are, but they're not as satisfying to me as the tyrants. I think they're not as thoughtfully deployed. I think
no, they're not. Yeah, they're not as thoughtfully deployed. It is cool to have like fight a big bipedal monster.
Yes,
and they do a couple of interesting things. So, like these are big like Cthulhu faced piles of arms and tentacles and shit.
Yeah.
Essentially, like weird.
They're like a non-floating, non-laser beholder, a little bit.
Yeah. Like they're goofy looking, just piles of arms and biomass, and they do a couple like their AOE like healing thing is interesting.
Yeah,
like where they will kind of turtle up and start healing, but when they finish healing, they blow up, so they're punishing you for for punishing them.
Yeah.
For healing. So it gets, you have to get in there and do a little bit, or what I would usually do is back off and poison them with my gauntlet.
Yeah. To counteract the rate at which they're recovering.
Yeah. Yep. A little bit.
Yeah. They have, they punish you for trying to get behind them. They kind of take their arm extremities and like wing them back to you to like pinch their backwards. So it's kind of hard to find an opening on these guys, more so than a lot of the other enemies.
Yeah. They will, they'll stagger. Which is what I eventually figured out, like tricking them into doing their like long leap and then kind of sidestepping and hitting them with heart attacks was usually what I do, because they would usually stun lock them. Yeah. They also will grab you and chew on your head for a little while. They have a little grab attack that's really comical. Like it doesn't do very much damage. Like they're just like softly gumming your pate until they toss you aside like a used blow pop.
Yeah.
Like.
Are the brains the bubble gum in that situation?
Yeah, it takes 3 licks.
Yeah. So these guys are generally deployed in smaller areas where they're trying to kind of control your passage through a place. It's going to pop up in a big bad way in the 3rd episode. But even here, these are bigger enemies that you kind of have to stop and deal with. Otherwise, unless you make an explicit effort to outpace them, they're going to make your life really difficult.
Yep. In the panorama, so if you go past this guy and go down back into the antechambers, this is the critical path for where you're going now, even though there's another way outside of the panorama, which is not very well signposted. Yeah. That was really frustrating to me. And a statue that doesn't come into play until way later, and I never actually took advantage of it. Yeah. But you find these Rogar statues are like, for those who stood upon us, I think it says. Mm-hmm. You have a certain weapon that can smash those, and if you smash all of them, you get these pieces of armor that are really powerful, but I never did it.
No. I got a couple of them. Like, I didn't backtrack to get them, but it was worthwhile. Like, I was mixing and matching armor anyway.
Yeah, I would have done it. I just didn't realize it during my play. I had to look up online later, like, what weapon would smash them.
Yeah. Yeah, so. it's very non-obvious. That's something that we didn't mention in the generalities, but like I think part and parcel with the story being a little bit weaker and a little bit less complex, there are item descriptions, but they are functionally useless.
I was wondering whether that one would actually tell you anything, because it seems like it
really doesn't. Yeah.
Okay. Because it would be nice if it did.
Yeah.
That's all. I was just hoping it'd be nice.
Oh, yeah, me too. I hope things are nice too.
I think things are nice.
Yeah. Me too, Gary. High five.
Area grandmas. Here we are.
Area grandma.
Hoping things are nice.
Yeah. Yeah. But the item descriptions are real disappointing. At a certain point, I stopped reading them because they are the worst combination of bad codexes that give simultaneously too much detail and not enough. They're not pointed enough, and also the kind of Teflon writing extends to those as well.
Yeah. I definitely see it.
Womp.
Down here, you're introduced to the spellcasters.
Yeah.
These guys are really tough. They have a surprising vocabulary
Oh, yeah.
of things they can do. It's kind of crazy. Like, I think out of all the regular enemies in the game, these guys can do the most different things. A lot of times they shoot like this little like soul barrage or whatever that's called in Dark Souls 2, like a bunch of little soul spears. They have a big soul spear.
Yeah.
They have an AoE. And then the thing that got me the most was this damage reflect.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Thing.
Me
They
too.
can get this red aura, and I didn't always realize why I was dying. But if they get this red aura, if you hurt them, it hurts yourself instead.
Yeah.
And you're doing so much damage at this point that's it.
Yeah.
They also can life leech you as well.
They
can do a
can
lot of things.
life what? Life drain you.
Yeah, life drain you.
Okay.
I said life leech for some reason. It is the the court of leeches again.
Yeah, but court of leeches is pretty good.
That's cool. Like I can't actually at this point I don't know what's Lords of the Fallen and what's Souls. Bloodborne, help me.
We've lost our rudder. The compass is useless. It's just spinning.
Miyazaki senpai, please
Senpai, restrict my leeches.
restrict my leech.
Yep.
Restrict my bleed.
Restrict. Yeah. Senpai, please nerf katanas. Restrict my bleed.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
These guys will also self-destruct when you kill them.
And do tons of damage as well.
Oh my gosh, it knocks you over too. Which, especially here, it's a bad situation because he comes with a knight, and in general, these are put in mixed company. So it's hard. They also love to deploy these in the proving ground challenges that you're going to find a little bit later.
Yep, with other enemies, and it's really hard in the proving ground challenges. Here, like it was like a real like, oh, Dark Souls. Like I just need to lure one guy far away.
Yeah.
You can't pull them like you can with Dark Souls, but they're kind of pathing. If you back up enough, one of them is maybe faster than the other.
Yeah.
And you can deal with one while the other one is catching up.
Yeah.
Usually.
They tend to do a weird zone defense a little bit. Like they stay pinned to an area, like in a way that feels distinct from like when an enemy's AI in Dark Souls 2 is set to like guard this doorway.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something that they actually in Scholar of the First Sin, enemies have way huger aggro ranges and leashes.
Oh.
So that's something that they actually have changed a little bit.
Man.
Where guys will follow you significantly more. We get there. This one specifically, like if you just rush in to fight the mage, there's a knight right there, literally just there to ambush you. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me about greed, Cole, because I never found this or picked it up.
Yeah. So I believe greed is locked behind a rune door. You get in there and you pick up some stuff. I don't know when I equipped it. If you're reading the item descriptions, as we alluded to earlier, they don't really say what something does. This says something about like, spell casting, sacrificing, et cetera, for the sacrificatorium. I think that what it's programmed to do is to give you some kind of benefit for sacrificing like the ceiling on your mana gauge, right? So when you in an ideal world, when this thing actually functions, you trade off your max mana for some other thing. However, I believe this is glitched. If it's not glitched, then that is a crazy thing to do intentionally. The effect is permanent. Not only is it permanent, but every time you unequip it and re-equip it, it stacks.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So what you end up with is the way that I spent the majority of this chapter of the game, which is with roughly 1/3 of my mana, which was not enough to be able to fire my gauntlet, to use any of my spells, anything like that.
That's pretty rough because the gauntlet later becomes like a key.
Yep.
That sucks.
Which I was forced to deal with this the first time that it became a key. Because I was not able to progress. I spent somewhere between 45 minutes and an hour trying to fix this problem because otherwise it meant starting the game over from scratch.
That's really rough. How do you fix the problem?
It is some kind of weird combination of equipping, unequipping, changing the view of your items, and then backing out of the menu, waiting for your mana to replenish, equipping it, taking another hit, but then changing your view, re-equipping it, unequipping it, changing your view, backing out, and then just watching it extend slowly beyond that. However, the actual combination that you have to do this at is really, really obscure. Every source that I looked at gave it in a different way. And like a lot of the time, like trying to do this, it took me down to 0 mana. Like, oh, so I can't even like just maximize this. I just have 0% of all my mana at any given time.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really frustrating.
It's so reading how to do this and then also trying to get it. It reminded me of trying to find Messigno in Pokemon Red. That's a little bit what it felt like. Eventually it worked. I was so frustrated and just ready to like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm going to YouTube it. It was so bad because like I could get around it. Like there are a couple of bosses here that I fought with no mana. Like I never used any of the spells or gauntlet or whatever. But like when it finally gated my progress against this item, this cursed item, this Tomb of Horrors fucking piece of shit. Like, oh my gosh. And it's not been patched out.
That's frustrating.
Yeah, it's real bad. So what I would say is if you find an item called Greed, which is separate from Avarice, which is separate from Meanie.
I'm pretty sure Avarice is a sword or a dagger in this game too. I guarantee it almost.
Specifically in the trinket section, don't equip that because you're going to have a very, very rough time. You're going to have to do some voodoo. It's going to lock you out of progressing through the game. Literally at the worst and at the best, it's going to keep you from using, the part of your skill set that actually makes this kind of a varied and unique experience.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah.
I just didn't run into it. I think at this point, because this is right after the crafter or whatever.
Yeah.
I gambled away my rune, so I could never get into this one.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about trinkets. They kind of take the function of rings.
Yep.
Here, as a pro tip, just to balance out some of the salt, like don't do that. Goofus.
Yeah.
goes. I'm not calling you Goofus, but if you're a Goofus in the future, you go and get Greed. If you're a Gallant, you go to the challenge gate that's on the back door to the cemetery and go get Backbreaker. Backbreaker is really good. It's Havel's Ring.
Yeah. So
it increases your equip burden by like 15 points or 20 points, which is really significant because, you're dealing with a much smaller scale in this game than you are in Souls as far as units and your maximum. So that's a really significant increase.
Yeah. When I wasn't messing with Greed, that was my most equipped trinket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's super good. But yeah, that sounds intolerable.
Yep. It was really bad. Like I threw a little bit of a fit about it on Facebook. But yeah, that's just a terrible experience to think like, and I was like 10 hours, 12 hours into a game, like when time is already at a premium. I mean, dear God.
That sucks.
Yeah. So the way forward is to kind of go up to the panorama, and there is a little door by one of these statues that lets you down into this area called the Abandoned Range.
Yes, which has not been abandoned.
No.
It's full of monsters. So that's what they should have called it.
Most people are confused. It's not an island; it's a peninsula.
Yeah, Abandoned was someone's name. Like it was like John Abandoned for the Rogar industrialist. Founded this place.
The Abandoned. That's another boss name.
Yeah, and a punk band name. The Abandoned would be a really good boss name. So you go down here. There's some dimensional beasts, some tyrant. Or there's a tyrant. There's some crossbowmen. A cave full of spiders, and you're kind of going through and you're finding these plates. Here, which end up being important to Yutka's side quest. Yeah. She came with you and is just kind of hanging out. I think she alludes to trying to find an answer to her family at this point. This is where she reveals that.
Yeah.
Like
even down to the passage and this dagger, like everything is about her lineage.
Yes.
And that bears pretty cool for it later on.
Yeah. Yep. So you get through here. You're introduced to, this isn't the first one, but it's one of the first pressure plate puzzles, which is where you want to use your clone. Which I didn't realize my first playthrough of the game. I just stripped naked and just tried to make the run. But if you leave your clone there, you can kind of take your time.
Yeah.
And go get stuff.
Yeah. And this just gets you kind of more items. Nothing really essential that I can remember. At least not that I took note of.
Yep. And this leads into the Infiltrator, who might alarm you in the fact that he doesn't infiltrate.
No.
And this name is entirely arbitrary. So
no.
Yeah, an arbitrary boss name in Lord of the Fallen. At least the commander commanded people. Like, this guy is he's in fact every boss you fought up into this point infiltrated. This is the only boss you fought so far that has not infiltrated anything. Like, ugh.
Yeah, so
He's a homebody. He should be like the homebody.
Yeah. You're fighting Kole.
Yeah. Yeah.
Please leave my house. You're making me uncomfortable. Don't touch my stuff.
Guests.
Yep. Yep. Oh no, this place is a mess. No, it's not a mess, but
Use a coaster.
Yeah. So like I thought this was going to be cool. Like it is the these are the Rogar who are like making incursions on the mortal realm. Like the Infiltrator, awesome. But like that's really the only way. This is it's like a different version of the spider creatures. What's her name? Booby Chesty LaRue in Dark Souls.
Quillag,
yeah. Quillag, yeah. or what's her name? Sandy. Yeah, Sandy. Sandy, yeah. Scorpion. Scorpion is Najka. Yeah. In Dark Souls 2 a little bit. So this is kind of the first boss that we've fought that is not a dude standing on 2 legs.
Yes, it is a dude standing on 3 legs. Yeah. And luckily, eventually, we're going to get to 4.
Ooh.
That's not true. We go like, it's like the number of legs, it's like 2, 2, 2, 3, 2, 2, 2, infinite.
This entire game, like the motif is the riddle of the Sphinx.
Yeah, what walks on 2 legs in the morning, 2 legs at around 10 a.m., 2 legs at noon, 3 legs at 1, 2 legs at 3, yeah. 2 legs at 5, and infinite legs at night. Those are the fucking bosses.
Yep. So this is kind of a crazy fight. Kind of the thing about this arena, which I love that the arenas are coming into play. Mm-hmm. Is that at the center you have this kind of magic well that is that is draining your mana. Now, if you've equipped greed, you don't have any mana anyway.
So no need to worry.
Nope, you are all set. But this guy kind of has a melee attack that if you're up close, like this is one of the first bosses where it really benefits you to be up close because the melee combo that he does is really predictable. It's 3 strikes, and then after you go through the phases, which we never really talked about the phases, like as opposed to Dark Souls, which is just like get this guy down to half and then it kind of changes. These are demarcated on the health bar.
Yeah,
as you're going along. Eventually, his scorpion tail kind of comes into play. But staying up close kind of takes away some of this guy's fangs.
Yeah. He's one of the few villains where you want to do that. He has these little pods that that can fall down, and they will. He can eat them to regain health, or you can smash them. But then you are getting far away from him, and he has some distance attacks that discourage that. Mm-hmm. For the most part, this guy was like, not a problem at all. Yeah. For me, like he was pretty easy. Like just walked up to him and hit him a bunch. Yeah. One of the things that happens, and we talked about this a little bit, but like if you've just been hitting your bonfires or whatever on your way here, sometimes they'll only refill a couple of flasks, and they'll refill you to full if you die. Mm-hmm. So every once in a while I get to a boss where it's like I could beat them on the first try. This guy wasn't. I could beat this guy on the first try. Mm-hmm. You get to someone where it's like I have no problem beating him on the first try, but for some reason my Estus flasks were maxed out at 3. Yeah. And then I would die once, then come back with 9 and be fine. Yeah. It happens later. It happened later to me with the Beast, which we'll cover at the end of this episode.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a little bit weird. Like the way that functions is different checkpoints. When you come to them without dying, they have little kind of satellite crystals that float around them that represent the number of potions that they'll give you. And
I never noticed that.
Yeah, those take a little bit of time to replenish. So if you're kind of making a run, like what that does is punish, provide a little bit more difficulty if you're just kind of progressing along. And finding a checkpoint and using it is not a guarantee that you're going to be completely recovered to max, which I think offsets a little bit, the fact that when you use a checkpoint, it doesn't cause enemies to respawn.
Yes. Yeah. We didn't mention that as a major difference, but that is indeed a major difference. I never quite figured out what did cause enemies to respawn.
Yeah. It is a loading screen. Loading screens cause them to respawn.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So like if you like, I'm not being glib there, like dying or shifting for, I just making it clear for the audience. If you dying, shifting between the Rogar or human realms or using a loot crystal will reset the stage.
Yeah. And the hint screens actually allude to that. They say how you can't really grind enemies for experience, which is true. Like the game does a good job of discouraging that. Yeah. So if you kill this guy without any of the lanterns in his his arena lighting up.
That's gonna be a time thing, right?
I think that what happens, I think this is glitched and it never happens. I think that's what I read online. Like they're supposed to light up and it just doesn't work. Mm-hmm. So I wonder what those lanterns would have done. But it needs to be patched and fixed. Yeah. So you kill this guy, you get the special version of his weapon, which I don't remember if it's any good or anything at this point. At this point, I'm like on my team, my axe, for this entire episode. Eventually, I think I ended up landing on Justice, which you get somewhere in the Rogar. Justice is really good just because it doesn't do as much damage, but it's not a great sword. Yeah. So you can swing it much faster.
Justice is really good. There's also one called Fate that is a one-handed axe that does really good until you strength up and get another one that is similarly poorly named. That
Last Rites.
Maybe
Last Right is good. Yeah. Last Rites is good, I think. I'm glad I never played a thief because all the thief ones are called scat. There's a thief dagger in this game. I kid you fucking not. I think it's called Skull Scraper. Like the best dagger is called the Skull Scraper. There's also there's like blood rich and blood poor or something like that, and one of them gets weaker as you kill enemies with it, and one of them gets more powerful. Which is kind of a cool mechanic, but they have dumb names.
Blood poor.
It's something like that. Like it's like something blood good and something blood bad.
There's a politically correct term for that. It's anemic. Sons of bitch.
Yeah. Republicans don't care about the blood poor. Blood Republicans don't care about the blood poor.
I love that we're building this entire blood form of government across this arc.
I would be way into the blood government.
Is that the end game of the Red Cross? The one world blood government?
Blood-based economy?
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's blood born until they blood die.
Yeah.
When you do, the only things that are sure are blood death and blood taxes.
Yeah. Like what if there was a world where the natural order of law was conservation of blood?
That's terrifying.
Yeah. And so like everybody is like, so we've genetically engineered marrow out of humans, and all of the blood that you're born with is the blood that you get.
Yeah, I think that's a Bloodborne spoiler.
Is it?
I think that's why it's called. No, okay. It could be though. That's why it's called that. Yeah,
I am Bloodborne. Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah.
After this, you're introduced to the most like annoying NPC in the game. I think this good Rogar.
He talks like a. So is he the guy who summoned him?
I've got a mouthful of Kleenex.
Is he? Is he the guy who summoned this guy? Because there's a pinwheel like priest Rogar. Who brings this guy out? But I never got a good look at the crippled Rogar's model.
I think it is. I don't know though, because you never run into that priest guy, so I think it is him. But he's really loud and really unintelligible. Like he sounds like bad Klingon stuff. And this is why you've been collecting human skulls at this point, because eventually
No, I've been collecting human. Don't judge me.
Yeah, I know.
I got my reasons. Don't worry.
Well, if you have a bunch of excess skulls, I should say, regardless of why you've been acquiring them, like maybe they're used or they're not perfect.
Maybe you tripped over the skulls. Who's to say?
Yeah, exactly. This guy will take them off your hands for you and trade you some equipment that I never got because I never got enough. He wants tons of skulls.
He wants 30 skulls. 30 skulls to max out this guy's.
Yeah, and
he wants a kindergarten's class's worth of skulls.
Yeah, an entire school bus of skulls. Geez, save some for the fishes, Rogar.
Man, oh man, that is a deep cut. Somehow you sidestepped into the realm of my childhood, because I was a thirsty young boy, Gary.
That was my childhood too, man. Here's the thing: in that class where I was the American Gladiators, I used to be such a thirsty young boy and not want to wait in line for the drinking fountain that I would drink out of the faucet in the bathroom.
Ooh.
Yeah, I didn't have the germophobia or anything. Like I would make sure no one else was in the bathroom and drink out of the faucet. I just wanted lots of water. But when you think about it as a kid, why didn't we have water bottles? Yeah. Like you have to drink water, dudes. Like you can't just you get to drink water twice a day. Like that is a really inhuman thing to do to anyone.
Thinking about that, right? Was it because we were going to squirt each other? Like Gary, I didn't get a water bottle till I was in college.
Yeah, and a lot of jobs you can't have a water bottle. When I was working at Fred Meyer, I became friends with all my bosses. I was like, man, I want some water. And what I shouldn't have to say that. Like, this is ridiculous. Yeah. And he's like, oh, yeah, that's fine. You can go get some water. And I'm like, I don't want to take I only get one break today.
Yeah.
And I hate this job and I hate everything about it. I need to shovel some cup of noodles into my face during that break.
Yeah.
Like, can I not have this count as my break? And because he was friends with me, it was fine for me to go drink water, which I needed to live.
Yeah.
In order to, and not have it count towards my eating time, which I also need to live. So fuck you working.
Yep.
Like, fuck you employment.
Well,
I mean, not every all employment,
yeah.
but like, man, it's just like
hashtag not all employment.
Yeah, not all employees
No,
or
but like-
employers, but like a lot of jobs have that.
Yeah, like
aspect to
menial, like dear God, like Brooks, man, Brooks from Shawshank,
Yeah.
still having to ask to use the restroom.
Yeah. Well, he didn't even have to. I had to ask to use the restroom.
Me too.
The point of that scene in Shawshank was he didn't have to ask.
Yep.
But I had to in 2009.
Uh-huh.
Why? Like, that was a prisoner in the 30s. Like an ex-con. That's crazy.
Uh-huh.
Ugh.
Yeah, no, it's
Fuck you, Fred Meyer.
yeah, like biological functions are right. Same thing. Same shit happened at GameStop. I had to earn the right to have a cup of water behind the counter.
So bad.
If it was the holiday, you didn't have to ask permission so much, but you had to say, hey, can you stand here for me? Because I really there are a lot of people in this room and I'm getting really anxious and I need to poop real bad because otherwise I'm going to flip shit and run out the front door.
Yeah, I had to, when I worked at Pendleton, I had to clock in and out with a little card.
Mm-hmm.
And if you had to use the bathroom, you had to do that too. And they would monitor the amount of times that you were clocked out on the card.
Uh-huh.
And it's listen, if I have to pee 3 times in an 8-hour shift, I have to pee 3 times in an 8-hour shift. The lack of respect this policy indicates for me is blood curdling.
Yeah, when I worked at a school supply company, the summers after my first 2 years of college, in order entry, they would give me shit for using the restroom. They would say, "I notice you going to the restroom a lot." This could be a problem. And the thing is, all of our supervisors, because the busy season was summer, we're all teachers. So picture a 19 to 20-year-old Cole,
Done.
having an elementary school teacher telling me what to do.
That's really, really unfortunate.
Yeah.
I cannot brook that.
In the way that she would talk to an elementary school teacher or to an elementary school student.
That is the worst. If anyone's listening to this and they're just no, it makes sense. You got time is money. Kind of go fuck yourself. I understand if you're doing that for a job and people the secret to a manager at one of those jobs is that they're no better off than the employees.
Yeah.
They just get paid 20 cents more on the dollar and have to be and are responsible for everything.
Yeah.
So it's a bad job. Mm-hmm. But if you're the people who write that policy,
yeah,
who are just seeing dollar signs, fuck you. That is so obnoxious. Mm-hmm. That is the worst.
But it doesn't matter. They're just going to the bathroom to text. Well, duh.
Well, right. First of all, I can text and pee.
Uh-huh.
Second of all, who gives a shit? If they're doing it all all of those policies that, so even absence, sicknesses and stuff. When I was a manager, it was if I trusted the person,
mm-hmm.
and I felt like they were taking advantage of it, we'd talk about it. Mm-hmm. If I didn't, if I believed they were being legitimate, people get sick and that's humanity and that's what happens.
Yeah.
Making into this weird number system that presumes that you're not going to be trustworthy in the first place is awful.
It's The Wire season 4, dog.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yep.
That is such a microcosm for life.
Yeah, it is. It's ugh. Oh boy. Don't cut this out.
No, I'm not going to do that. Don't worry. It's the infiltrator. So yeah, the infiltrator, the guy who collects skulls, who tells you not to pee. Let's see here. Yep. Where are we going? You're kind of headed out to the front door of the Rogar Temple, fighting another tyrant. But really, now that you have this crystal from the infiltrator, you're kind of headed back out to the realm of man.
First you talk to Yetka.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah,
to give her all the stone plates you have. And this is because they have a message that she's trying to figure out or decipher.
It's funny because they're kind of building up to a Seath or to a Logan kind of thing here. She is pursuing knowledge beyond the ken of what she ought to.
Yes. And Yetka is the closest thing this game has to an interesting character,
Yes.
I think. Like, she's not perfect. It's not great, but she does have an arc and is like, she's fine.
Yeah. She is leagues more interesting than Harkin.
Yes. Yeah. I would do a patch where I can play through as Yetka.
Yeah.
So
I'm down. Like, Yeka's quest. Do like Ada.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be what would get me to play this again, I think. But yeah, you're really just heading out after you give her the plate.
Yeah, there are some. And
how weird is it? She's just gonna hang out here.
Yep.
Like no, this seems like where are you gonna drink? Where are you gonna get water?
We're gonna drink skulls.
Listen to us?
Yeah,
yeah, drink skulls. Anyway,
I'm sure that's some kind of homeopathy. Like, one atom of skulls per 1,000 gallons.
Yeah, you just mash it up into a fine drinkable paste.
Well, here's the thing. Most water we drink probably has had skull in it at one point.
Oh, way skull.
Yeah.
Way tons of skull.
like it's probably been a part of a skull.
Yeah.
How metal is that?
I think throughout your whole life, what do you think the odds are that you've drank a human?
Oh, I mean, like just earlier today. I drank and pissed a human today, Gary.
Yeah. Like an entire human, like an entire human's worth of body part, and probably every part of a human has been inside you via water.
This episode has been strangely focused on hydration, Gary.
Yeah, I'm thirsty.
Yeah.
it's just I ran out of water.
Do you need to go? Do you need to get water?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I can power through.
Cool.
Anyway, so we're on our way out.
Yeah. You find these human soldiers who are trying to get out a little bit, and they want you to clear these beasts in the western antechamber. This is one of the little, like, just inconsequential diverticula quests.
Yeah,
that you do,
like little side quests. These guys are deserters too.
Yeah,
and they'll play into a quest later too. If you don't do this, you get another quest.
Yeah,
later.
On your way out, you give your crystal to the smith. And he's like, yes. And this enables him to teleport to any anvil.
Yes, which is a very specific X-Man.
Yeah.
The cool. At any point did you understand how going in here and killing the infiltrator was going to stop the Rogar incursion?
Well, he's the infiltrator. Like, if you kill the guy who's called the infiltrator, nobody can infiltrate.
Well, he's never infiltrated.
Right.
All these other people have infiltrated. People continue to infiltrate.
Yeah.
It is really like I never really understood what I was doing here.
There's no
or how it worked or how I succeeded.
There's no ontology to this. There's no sense of like from whence things come or like to which things go.
Yes.
And
it's like, how are they even getting in? Are they going through this little portal I'm going through?
Yeah, because like Kazla's been standing out there, and like if he done dropped the ball.
Yeah. Maybe they just can't spawn if there's somebody watching them.
Yeah.
It's like a game.
Yeah.
I have no idea. But like this was the very, not the first moment, but this is where it was cemented in my mind. Like, oh, this has a real feeling of like making it up as I go along.
Yeah.
Like the significance of these actions is not being well telegraphed. And I know I succeeded at something, but I don't feel like I did or understand how really. Mm-hmm. And that plays in this next bit where like getting into the Citadel, where you have to take the side path to get there. I didn't really understand why that was either.
Uh-huh.
Like you get here, you have to go through the catacombs
right
to get there.
Yeah. Like that makes a little bit of sense to me because like the front gate is barred because of the siege.
Yeah.
So you have to sneak in because anything approaching like an obvious approach would be rejected, right?
Which would be true if like, well, I guess that's true. But I was just going to say like Antanas has the way to get through that door that has you blocked, and he wants you there. Like it just seems like,
oh yeah, it's incredibly poorly motivated.
Yeah, it's messy.
Yeah,
it's just an excuse to go into the fourth area of the game.
Yes, it is. And so like think about how good Dark Souls does it in a very simple way.
Yeah,
which is you have to ring the two bells. You have to, find who is at the seat of Anor Londo. You have to kill the 4 great lords in order to get their souls. Dark Souls 2, you have 4 great old ones you have to kill. They're ancient souls or whatever. Like it bookmarks and kind of like marquees that very well.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so you always feel kind of motivated by like a search. However, here you're just kind of doing what people tell you to do, which is, kind of a discredited video game trope.
It would have worked like if the infiltrator was like a gigantic thing that was birthing Rogar.
Yep.
Or if it was something holding a portal open or something like that, like it would have made sense. The fact that it's just a monster is what, like it is next to a portal.
Yeah.
But I never got it communicated if that was supposed to be what was happening. Was that like magic portal in the middle was how the Rogar were getting in?
Yeah.
And then the crystal it had, well, I guess that makes sense because the crystal that you take from it is what you give the blacksmith that allows him to teleport.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess he does have a teleporting crystal that allows things to teleport from the Rogar realm to the human realm, but like it's just not underlined well enough.
Yeah, it doesn't change the course of the battle.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and that's something about this game world too, right? Like Dark Souls, something that I love about it is that it's this abandoned world that is held in kind of like this beautiful vacuum preserved state.
Yeah.
And you're going through and looking at it, and the fact that there are these forces that are, pushing and pulling back and forth. I don't feel like they do the necessary work to kind of justify those dynamics.
Not at all.
Yeah. And so really what it is, by keeping stuff in this like, we're right on the edge, you must go and be the deciding factor in this thing, as opposed to kind of these broader, kind of more satisfying thematically and symbolically kind of tasks that you're doing at the behest of almost nobody, at the behest of trying to like meet this goal that is set out by prophecy, as opposed to this guy who's saying you must defeat the infiltrator because, like, even if they said there are 8 lords that you must destroy, like that would have me, counting on my hands after each one, like, okay, cool, like I'm this far through. Even that motivation would say, okay, this is my main goal and everything I do is kind of tangential to it and a way to enable me to find the next one.
Yep. And that's not what they do. And it feels like, Monday morning quarterbacking is kind of what we do, even though I always feel a little bit self-conscious when I do it. Like, I'm not a game developer. Like, I don't do this stuff. I understand why it can be hard. But I feel like we've spent enough time examining a game series that does it really well to at least point out that it seems like it wouldn't be that hard to actually do this with a bit more proficiency.
I don't know that it would be, that hard. I can't speak to that. I can speak to what would be more satisfying to me as a person going through this.
Yeah.
And what would feel more motivated, would feel more satisfying.
Yeah. It might be difficult to do, but it would have been worth it, I think, at the end. Yeah. Anywho, catacombs. And it actually goes into the mines, too. There are mines below here.
There are mines, there are prison. This is fucking nuts.
Yeah, this is huge. And it is hard. It resists. This is very confusingly laid out. It kind of resists going through point by point. But it is it's plot important because the prison section, the actual catacombs are not so much plot important that I know of, but the prison section, we start learning a little bit about the experiments and stuff that Antanas has been doing.
Yeah.
And kind of the dark side of this world where like all crime is punishable equally.
Yeah. So you're kind of like, it's nice here. This is one of the areas where the lack of distinction from zone to zone kind of makes sense as you notice kind of the archaeology of this, the architecture, fading slowly from like one purpose to the other. This is an area of pretty strong environmental storytelling where, running along ramparts before wasn't. Right.
So you're just kind of going through here, fighting enemies and making your way through, collecting audio logs, etc.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of new enemies here.
Oh boy, is there one big one though.
I don't have a problem with this at all.
No.
I saw in the note, I thought this guy's really easy.
Oh, really? Wow.
He dies in like 3 hits now. Like he's super quick.
Huh. Yep. So I think my problem was that you always fought him in a narrow hallway. And the fact that he leads with this gigantic shield. He becomes like a massive plug in these, and trying to lure him out or try to get around him to where he can be vulnerable is really difficult. Again, like to use the comparison from before about the knights, it's like chewing on gristle a little bit.
Yeah. Yep. I don't know. Like it just ended up working out okay for me, but again, like I can't argue your experience. Like if it ended up being too tough. Like they felt like they had less HP than the gigantic knights to me. Like I found those guys harder than this guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't show up all that often, but he does. Like I think there's like probably 3 of them that are not, outside of the main first one.
Right. Yeah. So you have the first one kind of in that first descent into the circular chamber, but then there are 2 of them in there. Like they use them about as often as they use the tyrants in the Rogar temple. which is good. Like I like that. I like that spacing. I just found that their presence was disproportionately disruptive.
Yeah.
Like in a way that didn't feel engaging. It just felt tedious, like the Knights did. But that's totally just my experience, and maybe I didn't have the ability to cope with them like you did.
It could also just been a total build thing too.
Yeah.
Like my build was just like I had pumped more points into strength and less into something else, so I was just taking them down in one or two less hits.
Yeah.
At this point, or had better luck with runes, or any number of things could make a big difference here.
And this whole area is kind of about combining a bunch of stuff that you've seen before in certain ways. So this is big into ambushes. This is one of the more corridor heavy stages in the game. And there's a lot of stuff where there's just like a little side path off of this hallway where something will come out after you if you didn't notice that.
Yep. Kind of making your way and figuring out where you're actually supposed to go here is pretty tough.
Yeah.
There's kind of, before you can actually get into the Citadel, there's two levers you have to pull. And one of them is right by the boss, but the other one is kind of hidden.
Yeah.
And then even just getting back to that first lever, like for some reason I spent a lot of time doing that. I ended up looking up a map of this place because everything looked so samey in the prison area.
Mm-hmm. What's kind of neat about this, and something I appreciate about the confusingness of the layout, was the fact that you think that you're headed towards a goal, but instead you poke out in an entirely different part of the Citadel.
Yeah. This actually, and even there's that one exit that goes into the ramparts.
Yeah.
That first area, like this, some of the like locked doors you found before will actually exit to here, kind of making for shortcuts for when you have to go back, or if you need to go back here and skull hunt. So this Antanas' experiment, you're learning about how he is removing evil from man.
Yes.
Essentially thing. He's devised a method that actually separates man from his evil. And there's some genuinely kind of creepy like things where it's like the people afterwards kind of walk and talk but are empty.
Yeah.
Empty shells and stuff. And then there are logs from like overzealous jailers and such. And people, there's a guy who has been trapped and experimented upon here, which is when I started thinking that the infected are the products of Antanas' experiments, not Rogar related.
Yeah. It's pretty obvious. Like when you leave the catacombs, like the guy says, when you leave the Rogar temple, it says, go through the catacombs. I came from there. It's a really bad scene. Antanas is up to something. Like they're foreshadowing they're foreshadowing this turn really, really early.
Yes. Yeah. Even though previously, like I was pretty convinced those things were Rogar, but it's, I think that the actual arc is supposed to be that Antanas fucking around like this is what caused the Citadel to be overrun because he had weakened it previously. It'd be like if, in the Umbrella Labs, if there was an outbreak and then another thing took it over during the outbreak.
Yeah. It's almost like Half-Life, right? Like, the Zen thing brought the Combine in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think that's what it's kind of going for.
Yeah. Like it is the banishing the Rogar and Adir created the imbalance, and then this kind of monkeying around destabilized things even further and caused a whiplash back the other direction.
Yes, I think that's what it's going for too.
Yeah.
After making your way through this, and there's a little scene where there's two prisoners.
What's the point of that? Like I didn't get any reward from it.
The guy shows up. Like whoever you save shows up later at the Citadel, but he doesn't do anything. If it's the good guy, he's like, "Thank you so much. I was not a murderer." And if it's the bad guy, he goes, "Thanks for letting me out." And that's it. That's literally it. And you can't kill him. You can't kill NPCs in this game. Right. So I was like, "Oh, this guy fooled me. I'm going to kill him." Nothing. No dice. Womp. It's just a silly, and it's a little like if you open my cage, it will wake up the monster in the other cage, who will then like it is a really silly.
Okay, there are three cages. One has a fox. One has some corn. One has a hen.
It's exactly like that. It's really dumb. Yeah. And it's on the way to the champion.
Yeah.
Who is the boss of the catacombs.
Man, oh man, I had a lot of trouble with this guy.
He's got an anvil for a head.
Yes, he does.
Yeah, I want to summon the crafter to his head. This guy is not like wasn't too tough for me. He does have some like, so he's like a Toro boss. Mm-hmm. Kind of weirdly enough, I don't know if you noticed this. Do you notice that you can parry his charge?
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You can also block it with a tower shield, which is like a very non-Dark Souls thing. Like in Dark Souls, like this charge would definitely hit through anything. Mm-hmm. But here you can actually block it, and it is pretty. It's a pretty good tactic.
It's really satisfying to do that. Yeah. That's how I ended up beating it.
Yeah, it's a real big clang, and then you get some time to wail on him.
Yeah.
So the fight ends up being about like manipulating him into charging.
Yeah. And like determining whether or not you have enough time to like post up with a shield. Right.
Yeah.
Because using a regular shield, like a kite shield, you have to depend on your timing. The tower shield is the safer bet. However, it takes longer to get into a safe position. So like you may have to like waste a couple of short charges so that you can get him far enough away to do one that you can safely block. And the thing is, like as he progresses, he has this rage meter that as he does damage to you, it goes up. And as he gets more angry and weaker, he charges you less and less and does kind of more of these barrages and shockwave attacks.
Yes. Yeah. So that plays into the win condition. You're supposed to defeat him without him raging at all, which you can do like if you just don't take a lot of damage. So it kind of ends up being a little bit like the first fight, which is a little bit more forgiving. He doesn't. This also feels like similar to the commander, like an inversion of what you're going to be doing, because he's a Toro boss. But when he hits the wall, it's not like he's stunned.
Right.
Which I'm happy about because I don't need, I feel like Arkham Asylum did all of that ever needs to be done.
Yep.
Like
with the Venom
never,
guys.
Yeah, with how that was every boss fight in that game until literally the M boss just turned into that, which is one of the worst bosses in video game history.
Oh my god.
That I think that for like the game to boss fight quality ratio in that game is probably the widest.
Yeah.
That never needs to happen.
And like that's why, like, if we did an Arkham game, it would be City, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because City has amazing boss fights.
Yeah.
Like, I think City's a much better game. A lot of people don't because it has way more collectibles and stuff. But again, simple life hack: just don't do those things.
Don't look. Just don't.
Yeah,
look.
Just don't look. So this guy is pretty tough. Like, this guy took me a couple tries because once he actually gets you, he does a lot of damage and will do more damage the more he gets you. So it's kind of a slippery slope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to manage that tide. It's it's a little bit of rich get richer, poor get poorer kind of thing. But this was tough.
Yeah.
And
not like in a horrible unfair way or anything either. Like this is an actual this is a challenge. Figuring it out was fun.
Yeah.
Like figuring out that I couldn't do the Toro video game thing to him.
Yeah,
etc.
Yeah, and this is the first of the bosses that has like a special meter behind him. The other boss we're going to do this episode has another one that functions differently than this, and like that is a way for them to, if not, introduce thematic variety, at least introduce a little bit of gameplay variety.
Yeah.
Okay.
So after you beat him, you actually get to see this lab where Antennas has been experimenting. On things and get tons of lore notes.
Yeah.
About this.
Yeah. So people who are questioning him, it's the usual, are we playing God? What does this mean? Oh boy, I saw something really terrible. A bunch of stuff like that.
Yeah. And a soldier beckons you into the Citadel.
Yeah.
Which now, like, in kind of a neat, after you get through this fight, but there are actually people here. Like, you do get the sense of like, oh, there actually are people in this world. For the first time in the game as you're fighting up through the Citadel. Yeah,
I like this run a lot. Even if I eventually abandon trying to fight them, like both of those feel thematically sound, right?
Yeah.
Either Harkin is this badass who has, learned how to deal with these threats. I was not that badass. I was the person who knew when I was outnumbered to run to safety where, the numbers could keep them back. Either way, it feels really good and it feels non-Soulsy.
Yeah.
In Souls, there's really no place to run to. Here, it gives you a place to run to.
Yeah. It does. You do get this idea of them kind of being overwhelmed a little bit.
Yeah.
And overrun, which is cool. And it's really tough. Like, you're making your way through a lot of tough little encounters. On your way here, lots of like mages covering knights and vice versa. And like rogues and little side passages that will come out. Like lots of concerted ambush points.
Yeah. And I like climbing a tower. Like, this feels like a challenge.
Yeah. Yep. Me too. Eventually, you get up. You run into, if you save the monk and cut off his arm, you run into him here, and he asks you to clear out his lab. Yeah. Which I didn't know what he meant either. Yeah. But if you do it, you can give him the Tyrant Hearts, and he will make your potions more effective.
Yes, every 4 Tyrant Hearts you give him, he will improve the effectiveness, which is nice. That can make a difference in a boss battle.
Yep, and it does make it a little bit like, oh, there's a point to this guy at all.
Yeah.
So eventually you get up to the roof. Caslo's up there. and you need to speak to Antanas in the planetarium.
Yeah. So,
up here.
God forbid this be easy. The planetarium is overrun by
Yes.
by second and third tier monsters that you have to clear out.
Yeah, I mean, even kind of later tiers, like there's pretty much, it's a real like, royal flush of guys. Like it is, one of the knights, one of the like a mage, a rogue. There's kind of everybody here. A crossbow guy covering the knight.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's real rough. But go ahead.
I was just gonna say you cleared it up, and eventually after you cleared up, kind of climaxing with one of the wardens, Antanas shows up.
Yeah. And you get a chance to talk to him, and you get kind of the mission for the next leg of the game.
Yes.
Which is, he says, no big deal. You have to go kill a god.
Yes. And if you have been playing this like a God of War game, in tone, you can be like, kill a god, sign me up. Otherwise you can question him more.
Yeah, we haven't talked about his accent, have we? He has like
Harkin?
Harkin. He has like a very low class, not quite Cockney.
Yeah.
But like it facilitates between like I'm trying to be proper Cockney and like a little bit Australian at the same time.
He is a little bit like he's a little like a Russell Crowe, like kind of sounding guy. Like I could see him being played by that. But yeah, it is a real like the accents in this game are all over like that weird fantasy European thing. Like it doesn't make any sense. Why couldn't like Yetka should have had a different accent?
Yeah,
but her name's Yetka.
Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah. So we learn that Adir is attacking to get Antanas.
Yes.
He's trying to kill Antanas. We don't know exactly why yet. And they want you to kill off Adir and go back into the Rogar realm and finish off all the rest of their, like, you forgot some.
Yep. While you're up, can you?
Yeah. You got me one of those.
Yeah.
If
you have been paying attention, you can also call Antanas out. You can say like, "Oh, a true paragon of man wouldn't do X, Y, and Z." That I like done straight up saw down the catacombs.
Yeah. Yep. But it doesn't actually. This isn't a branching path or anything.
No.
Kaslo even says like Antanas is up to something. Like, no shit, bud. But they turn your gauntlet into a key so you can get further into the Rogar realm. And you start heading back.
This is the place where I got trapped earlier. When they turned the gauntlet into a key, and all of a sudden having mana is important.
Yep.
Yeah. So you have to fire a gauntlet at the seal on the front door, which I don't know why it's there. Maybe that's what was keeping you out. Likely that's what was keeping you out.
Yeah, it was keeping you out. But also I thought these were like specific Rogar things. Like why do those seals exist everywhere in the Rogar realms?
Life is chaos.
Yeah, I don't know. Nothing makes sense. But you go out into the courtyard and you fight another monster. And this is not a Rogar Lord.
No.
This is another one of Antanas' experiments, actually. Which you find out if you go back to the catacombs, you can actually find his holding cell, which he breaks out of.
Yeah.
And read some logs about this guy's origin. This is the Beast. Who's this huge monster?
Yeah, this is the biggest boss that you fight.
Yeah, it's the only real big boss you fight. Like, it is huge. It's like the only Seath-sized, guy you fight.
Yeah. Like, so you think, okay, cool. This is going to be like, let's unleash the beast, right?
Yes.
We fought the infiltrator. He was pretty big. This guy, let's just get in it. Like, let's get some like, Shadow of the Colossus action. Let's do some Dragon's Dogma. Nope.
Yeah.
Like this is pretty much the apex.
Yeah.
So he has a secondary meter, which is his stagger, right? Mm-hmm. Which, if you maximize this by doing a lot of attacks on his ankles, he will kind of fall over and open you up for like a lot of damage. However, his primary attack when you're trying to do that is a stomp that raises a bunch of spikes up. So you have very, very little opportunity to take advantage of that.
Yeah, they're in further widening concentric circles.
Yeah.
The spikes are. So if you can avoid the first wave of spikes, the other ones you can get within if you stand between his legs. And then from a distance, he, for the most part, charges.
Yeah.
Does this kind of like silly charge attack. And that's it. Like there's not too much to this guy. Like I got hit a lot. Like this was a thing I just tanked my way through. Like I died the first time, then came back with 9 SS flasks and had no problem.
Yeah.
Just like, I'm just going to heal a lot. Damage over time is really huge for this guy.
Yeah, I ended up using the gauntlet a lot for this.
Yeah, poisoning him or putting him on fire helps a lot.
Yeah, that's part of his gimmick as well. He will shoot like large pools of poison fluid.
Poison.
Yeah.
And that's his alternate, not getting poisoned is his alternate win condition.
Yes.
This guy.
Yeah. And this is also the second opportunity to have him destroy one of those statues in that courtyard.
Yep. And that's the beast. And next episode, we'll be finishing this game out. Mm-hmm. We're going to head back into the Rogar realm and fight some more lords.
Yeah. More lords. There's some side quests that we picked up on the way out of the Citadel that weren't worth mentioning right now, but we're going to do them before we go back to the temple.
Yeah. Lords, Fallenses. We're gonna handle it all. After that, we're doing an episode about the additional lore implications of Scholar of the First Sin, the patch.
Yeah.
That came out, which is really just an episode about the one NPC, but it makes a big difference.
Definitely.
And then it's Bloodborne time.
Yeah, it is right upon us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this and you have any friends who are like jumping in on Bloodborne, hip them to us.
Yeah.
Like these launches are a big opportunity for us to grow. Let them know if you like us.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you have thoughts about Lords of the Fallen, hit us up at Duckfeed.tv/contact and share those. In the episode after next, we'll be reading your thoughts on those, and we'd welcome them.
Well, we can't read your thoughts. You can just send them to us.
Speak for yourself. I will be reading your thoughts after they've been transcribed.
Yes.
Yeah, you can rate and review us on iTunes. You can join us on Patreon at patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. Makes a big difference.
Yeah.
You can go to Duckfeed.tv/tipjar and use the Amazon referral link.
Yeah.
Also a big deal.
Check out our other shows. Abject Suffering is a pretty good one. I like it a lot. It's one of my favorite things that we do.
It's super fun.
Yeah.
And we're rounding out guest month.
Yeah.
So, or we have rounded out guest month.
Yes.
By the time this has come out, but appreciate those. Anything else?
No. Just thank you everybody for listening.
All right. I will talk to you guys later. What should they do until next time?
They should watch out for the Tomb of Inflaming.
Yes.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Yeah, cool.
Watch out for the skull scraper.
Yep.
And we all pray that we will have far more soon.
Is that how he prepares the skulls?
Yes. Got to get him proper scraped.
Yeah, you can't have residue on there.
Got to get him proper scraped.
Right-o.